Start streaming. All right, this is not the phone we're gonna fix. This is my phone. And my phone, I was just looking at it the other day and I noticed that once again, through my poor performance and constantly dropping my phone, I have once again cracked rear camera glass. Now I was looking at this. When I first got this phone, this is an iPhone 12 Pro, when I first got my 12 Pro, I dropped it because of this stupid, so stupid case. Let me see if I can switch over. I've been playing with a new thing here. Yeah, look, here's my phone. And I paid money for this thing, so dumb. This little like card holder. I bought this from the Apple store and it's like all like matchy. I think I paid $50 for this utter piece of crap. I have hated this for years. And it means that when I carry my phone around, it will just, it's like it's okay, but it will just come off instantly. So you will drop it constantly, and it took me like 9 seconds to crack the rear camera glass when I originally got the phone. And then I lived with it like that for, I think, a couple of years until finally one day Brad was like, give me your phone, and it took him about 4 seconds. I don't even remember which one he replaced. I was just asking him if he remembers, and he was like, I don't know which one it was. But I can't even tell, maybe you guys can tell in chat, which one of these is the one that has been replaced. I mean, this phone's so beat up. But I don't know, coming up on summer, I might have to let Brad work his magic again, because now there's like a little crack here. See that little crack from me dropping it the other day? Now that's not as bad as what happened to Desmond's phone. So we've got Desmond Butts, who I believe he has contacted us and said, hey, is my phone done yet? And I believe he said his name was Captain Butts. So we've got Captain Butts' iPhone 13 Pro Max, and he did, like, this totally happens, pretty much the same thing, and his problem here is rear camera glass crack, combined with Captain Butts took his phone and, whoops, dropped it in the ocean. So who wants to see what does it look like inside an iPhone if it's got cracked rear glass plus ocean swim? I bet everybody does. So let's see if we can click this over, and we are going to open it up together. So this is the phone that we've got to fix today because Captain Butts said, oh, snipies, my data. So we've got, how does this thing work? Oh no, I've messed this up horribly. All right, can we spin this around? I'm trying to use an iPhone right here on this little contraption to be an overhead camera. So we'll see if that works. But I don't really get how to move this around. Okay, so I looked in here and I was like, oh man, this one needs to be a live stream. So let me make sure everything is working here with our live stream stuff. Is it? Let's see, let's click over here. Let's click to live stream. Yes, up. And there is Tim in the chat. And I had a note here to mention to everybody, don't forget to sign up for MacBook training. We are doing our only once a year MacBook Practical Board Repair School. So if you have any interest in learning MacBooks, Tim is going to come out with Brad and me and the rest of Team iPad Rehab, and we are going to do a week of MacBook board repair. Super fun. So go to iPadRehab.com and click Training tab, and you can scroll down and see the MacBook training course is this September. So I wanted to put that out there. We get asked all the time. Everybody that's come through the class, we want to do another class. What other classes do you teach? MacBook board repair once a year. So go look for that online on the MacBook repair. I think it's just called MacBook course or something like that. iPadRehab.com, click training. Okay, so now this is working. And I'll give Tim another shout out while I'm here. I've been doing, for whatever reason, what I've been doing a lot of lately is Samsung CPU transfer. There's like a whole line of them. This flux is really good for CPU rework. So this is the TCRS Tim Flux that is available also at iPadRehab.com on the supply store, or you can get it directly from Tim, I'm sure. That's become my favorite for CPU rework. And I was just thinking that yesterday when I was doing one. I'm like, this is really good because it's so clear, it's so thin, it can go right under the chip. It's perfect. Okay, and now let's take a look and see what happens to Captain Butt's iPhone 13 Pro Max. So I've already lifted off this screen. I think it's had a prior repair attempt. Dun, 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 dun. Whoa! Let's see, can I zoom? Well, let me zoom. Yeah, here we go. Zoom it up. That's really rough. Look at that, because normally you kind of think, well, there's, they're water resistant, right? You're supposed to be able to take this thing and take it in the bathtub. You're supposed to be able to take underwater pool pictures. Who knew that you would get this much just frank rust from a quick little tiny dip in the ocean just because of that rear glass crack right there. So if you have your rear glass cracked, go see Brad immediately. He can fix it. It'll take maybe a minute. In fact, I bet you, hey Brad, what are you doing right now?
Looking at an iPhone with absolutely no charge port inside of it.
Gone.
No charge port inside it.
Gone.
Somebody ripped the charge port out from inside the phone?
Somebody was mad at our friend up front here.
Oh, that's a local.
Not married anymore?
Is it a divorce? What's going on here? Are you gonna have to fix that? Maybe? All right, what do you think about, before I finish this live stream, do you think you could fix my rear camera glass?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Only if I have it in stock.
Only if you have it in stock. Okay, well, all right, here it is. I'm gonna leave it over here, and the chat will love to see if I can learn a lesson from Captain Butts and fix my rear camera glass before I leave today, because it's summer and the likelihood that I'm going to get pushed into the lake or something like that is pretty high. And I don't want to end up like this phone. All right, so let's dive in. Let's see what we can do to get this fixed. I think this one's so rough that I'm going to go ahead and take the board out before I do anything else. So let's see if I can take it out here on my little hand cam. I don't know if I like this or not. It's kind of weird that it's just on like one side of the screen, kind of like the other style, but that's not set up. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna take this out and we're gonna get out the DC power supply. It is funny, I just had to wait on starting this stream for a while because Sunday was involved in a passionate discussion of book banning. Apparently, in Texas, you cannot ban books anymore because it has content that you don't like. And the example was using the word butts, because I was thinking about, this screen says butts right on it here. Would this content, would my YouTube live stream be banned in Texas over the word butts? Not anymore. You're not allowed to do that. So then we had to have a long discussion over book banning, which is fun stuff here at the very diverse iPad Rehab mothership. All right, we're gonna now take a look, and I think this battery has been replaced. Like there's some screws that are missing that I didn't take out. So somebody's, Mr. Butts, Captain Butts has already been somewhere to try to fix this, and they have taken out the battery and probably just tried to replace that. So it's not going to be super easy, and it looks like they've taken out like at least one screw here, and let's see, that's really rusty. Look how rusty it is down there. That is rough. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take out our SIM tray. Oh, there's this SIM. Look at that. You can still use it. It's not rusty at all. There was an old lady that came in here that was probably 75, and she could have been older than that yesterday, and she had a flip phone. And she came in and she was saying, my flip phone is not able to get cell service, so it's not making calls. So somebody has already taken this board out. They've desoldered the 5G antenna. So we'll have to take a look at that. But I like this story about this old lady because it leads to an idea that I think is really good for you in your repair shop in your town as a community staple. Here's what it is. She came in and she is using a flip phone, so she's probably doesn't want to spend a lot of money on any kind of repair. And her complaint was that she couldn't make a call. And she showed me that when she tried to dial it, it would just, it didn't have service. And so I was like, this to me sounds like maybe a bill problem. How are you paying the bill? How does that phone know that you paid the bill? So I showed her how to just kind of take it apart with my hands, take out the battery and find the SIM. Showed her the SIM, pulled it out, put it back in, put the battery in, and it worked. So she's thrilled, solved the problem just by disconnecting the battery, pulling the SIM, putting it back in, putting it back together. There is no way that this old lady would have ever been able to figure that out for herself. Now, I'm on my way to being an old lady, and I really feel for that demographic, right? It's, how is she supposed to solve this problem? What she needs in her life is a teenager, right? So if you went down, like, Bridget, do you think you could figure out how to take a SIM out of a flip phone and put it back in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bridget, have you ever seen a flip phone?
Yeah.
Do you have a flip phone?
No.
Okay. Right. So Bridget, are you 17?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bridget's 17. She's the intern for this year. She's automatically going to be able to solve that problem just by being 17 years old. All 17-year-olds are going to be able to fix this, and all 77-year-olds will never be able to fix this. So here's the idea that I really like. People like Bridget and all other 17-year-olds that are in that high school that are thinking about going to college, they need to be able to write a college essay. They need to be able to have a resume that speaks about things that they did in their community, leadership, community service. Colleges really like that stuff. So what about this? In your repair shop, when you have these people come in with these problems that you're not going to charge them for, it's kind of taking time away from your work. What about having them write their name down on a list called Juniors Helping Seniors, where you make the connection for this lady and just connect her up with anybody at the high school that's a junior that wants to have a little resume builder. Just say, hey, you juniors need to practice talking to people, having a conversation, helping somebody, figuring out what they need. You can help this lady, and the lady can be connected to you. It's a win-win for both of you. Juniors helping seniors helps the kids get stuff to put on their resume, help them solve problems, and it helps the seniors in your community get out of your hair, and it solves these little problems. So I really, really like this Juniors Helping Seniors idea. And if you try it in your repair shop, it's just a great thing that a repair shop is uniquely able to do. Okay, so is that a program you're doing currently? Yes. So, my kid is a junior, and, there's him and his friends and anybody else that's over there. It's pretty easy just to call the guidance counselor and say, hey, give me a list of kids that want me to call them and hook them up with these old people that come in with these problems that, they'll be able to figure out. And even if they don't know, it doesn't matter. They'll have an experience. Okay, end of plug for that concept. Now, let's see what happens when we put Mr. Captain Butts' phone on the DC power supply. So I have not done this. I just looked at this phone and said, whoa, that's a lot of rust for a rear camera glass. So let's see what happens. What is this thing in my oh, that's his battery. All right, move that away. Okay, we're going to connect it. And I don't think I set up my on-screen DC power. Is it too late? Let me check to see. That might be hard. That would have to get plugged in. Let's see. I'm curious in chat, what kinds of things like that have you done in your community? How are you using your repair shop to just, be a force of goodwill as a local business owner. So I'm curious, are you sponsoring sports teams? Like, what kind of stuff are you doing? All right, let me see if I can make this work so that you guys can see the DC power results. So I'm going to open up a couple of apps here that are all theoretically connected. And let's see if I can make that work. All right, we're going to open that up. We're going to say open that up. And now we have Easy Share working with my DC power. I'm going to turn my DC power on. There, we've got some action. And now I'm going to connect Easy Power. And did it work? Kind of. Let's bring that to the top. There! Yay! There it is, right there. There's the Easy Power, DC Power app. So this is the output of my DC power supply plus my squid. So I've plugged in the squid right here into Captain Butts' 13 Pro Max, and we can see that at rest, what should be a 0 right there at the bottom number is not a 0, it's 0.05. 50 milliamps, that's bad. So there is a leak, there's a current leak somewhere on this board, and we need to solve that 50 milliamp leak before we do anything else and ask this board to turn on or do anything else. All right, so we're going to disconnect and we're going to make that go back to sleep. So let's take a look under the microscope and kind of see how bad is it actually on the board. So let me put this to sleep so we can get a full screen here. And we are going to take a look at this together. All right, I'd love to reveal my plans because it fosters so much creativity among participants, but for now, playing it close to the vest as to not get snubbed, says MobyFix. Well, do tell. What are you talking about? We want to know what you're doing in your community. I really like that juniors helping seniors idea, though. Okay, so this board actually doesn't look nearly as bad as I feared. It certainly doesn't look nearly as bad as the last one that I did, a 13 Pro Max saltwater, earlier this week. And it ended up having to get CPU transfer, which is unusual for just a saltwater phone, but it was really bad inside the layers. All right, so over here on the top section of the board, that all looks pretty good, but down there's a lot of rust. I mean, there's nothing to call it other than rust down there at this connector. Now this guy's on the bottom board, which we don't care about because the top board is where the data is. Now we could take this shield off, and when I take these shields off on the 13 Pro Max, I do it mechanically, so that is something that we could do, so it can be a little bit aggressive, so I try not to do it unless I have a good reason. And then over here, somebody has already like cleaned in here because it's missing all of the foamy stuff that's supposed to be around these guys. But it doesn't look bad, which is great. All right. This top board looks pretty good, and then we can't really see much down here. So somebody has taken off the sticker that normally lives down here, and they've professionally, I think, desoldered, yeah, they've desoldered this or ripped it off. It looks like ripped. There's no flux, but there was something there. There's a sticker mark there. Okay, time for us to separate the layers so that we can look inside. So far, we don't see any frank liquid damage just on the top board. So that's great. Maybe this is a bottom board problem and we are in the clear. All right, so I'm going to bring back this guy so that you guys can actually see the separation of this thing. All right, one thing I got trolled with for a while when doing these board separations are these dumb stickers. These dumb stickers are now on our Practical Board Repair School notes. They're right at the top. If you don't take these off, I mean, I was dumb enough to really think, man, these boards are so hard to separate. You know, it just takes so much heat. Not really. They're really easy to separate as long as you take the sticker off, because this sticker is kind of stronger than the solder that holds these two layers together. And if you don't realize that and you don't take these stickers off prophylactically, then you're going to be trying to separate them and it will be held on just by the sticker. Yep, that definitely was in the what not to do category. All right, let's see if we can remember how that goes. All right, that's on there. Now we're going to fire it up, and we are going to have a conversation about who knows what while we wait. So right now we've got this heating up. It's 24 degrees Celsius. I like to set this on a relatively high temperature. I set it for the boards that are like iPhone 11, 12, 13 and up. I set this at about 200 degrees Celsius, knowing that it's uncalibrated, so it's 200 degrees Celsius. And I usually don't let it get anywhere close to that. So I'm just looking to see, you know, some flux fumes from the flux that's on the board, something to kind of be an indicator that it's getting hot enough for me to separate. And then I need some kind of a little tool to, you know, grab in there and flip it up. So it takes a while. Right now it's on 42 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to check in here with chat. Jessa, do you use Mi-Jing fixtures for testing boards? The jig which allows you to connect the bottom and the top boards without soldering. No, I do not. Here's why. That's a really good question for MobiFix about the Mi-Jing testing fixtures. Now, I don't think that in China you can just say company A good, company B bad. You know, like these Sunshine blocks. I really like Sunshine blocks, but some of the stuff that Sunshine makes is total crap. You know, so it's not like there's a good company. Mi-Jing does make some of the stuff that I really like, but as far as the Mi-Jing, what I call eye sockets, the other brand, it's kind of like Q-tips, right, or Coke. You know, I don't know what the generic term is for the contraption that forces the top and bottom board together. I don't use those. And here's why, because we've always used eye socket. And back in the day when we were trying out all these different products, the Mi-Jing ones kind of didn't work as well as the eye socket, the Xianli brand. And so when we ordered from just a vendor in China, and we're like, you know, we want to get these eye sockets. I asked them, why are you selling these two different ones? And they were like, well, the eye socket was much more expensive. And I was like, why are there all these different ones? And they're like, well, this one, the Qianli eye socket, that's the good one that works. And then there's the other one. What? You know, what does that mean? And then there's the other one. You know, so while the Mi-Jing stuff is great, other things, the last time I checked in, it's been years, I never returned to them after back in the iPhone 10 days. We've just always used the eye sockets. So now the eye sockets are the ones that we use, and you can tell because everything that we use, this guy, is for sale on the iPad Rehab supply store. So if we stop using something, so like if this is the eye socket that we do use that presses together the top board and the bottom board. If we phase it out, then we discontinue it from the website. So whatever's on the iPadRehab.com supply store right now, that's what we're currently using because somebody in here vouched for it. So like the Tim Flux is for sale in the store, and we're going to phase out and stop offering the other older fluxes unless, I think Christy still likes one of them for some certain purpose, so that'll stay on there. All right, that's Qianli. Yes, it is. All right, okay. Connecting generations is awesome. You will find out. What do you guys think in chat is the secret MobiFix secret community activity? I can only guess. I have no idea. The other thing that iPad Rehab does for community activities is I have started coaching the Odyssey of the Mind team. And I do that because my mother did that for me. So Odyssey of the Mind is a community program that I would really recommend. It's been around since the early 80s, and I did it as a kid, way back when it first started. And in Odyssey of the Mind, you work on a team where the team has to solve a problem, where the problem will be something like create a vehicle, the vehicle has to travel in a circle, the vehicle has to pick up an object on its own, the vehicle has to ring a bell, And then there has to be sort of a creative skit with a lead character and an unexpected costume change and an original song, something like that. And then they work together. The crux of Odyssey of the Mind program is no outside assistance, so the adults have to sit on their hands and let the kids figure this stuff out all by themselves. And that's really cool. So my girls have done that. My boys did that as well. And I've been coaching them for years. Now, with the Odyssey of the Mind program, what does that have to do with iPad Rehab? The rules are that schools that have an Odyssey of the Mind team, they have to have all of the team members from that one school. Which means if you're a homeschool kid, or if you're a team that is from, a different group, like a church group or a Rotary Club or something like that, and those kids go to different schools, they can't join Odyssey of the Mind without a sponsor. And that's where you come in. So any shop, any business can sponsor an Odyssey of the Mind team, and it's about $200. So that is a really, really great way to foster the kind of creativity that I think is responsible for how I grew up to say, sure, we can fix iPhones even though the manufacturer says you're not supposed to do that. Hey, Jessa, I stopped in last year while you were in Michigan. It was surreal to everything in action. The team was great. I own a repair shop in Michigan. Yes, so I went to Michigan for the Odyssey of the Mind World Finals, and we came in 8th place, which was really, really fun. All right. Okay, so now let's see if this still looks like it's not going to be hot enough. Now this is weird because I changed the lighting to be able to see what's up on this phone cam. And still not ready. It's only 135 degrees Celsius, so that's going to be still too cold, but you can kind of test it a little bit. So I like this particular one, this Sunshine block heater, because we made a call back in the iPhone 10 days when we first started having to separate boards. I remember, I don't know if you guys remember like the original separator things. Here's one that was like from the iPhone 10. But the Sunshine brand had this block concept rather than a standalone machine that everybody else had, which means that they could update each year with a new block, and you would keep the rest of the unit. And they have done that, so they continue to support this product. They did make a new version. I don't like the new version. I still just like the blocks, but the new version takes forever to heat up, and the temperatures are all over the place, and they tried to do these little metal inserts, but still like the blocks. They still do the blocks. But I do remember the first separator back in the day of the iPhone 10 was a Rewa product that they, Rewa and I don't really get along, but Rewa came out here one time. And they gave me one of these like board separators. And at the time I was like, okay, that's cool, something to help separate it. You might remember back in the day that there were nozzles you could get for the Quick that were in the shape of the iPhone 10 board you could plug in. That was really cool. But then Rewa sent me a message that said, do not use the board separator that we gave you because it might electrocute you and kill you. Please throw it away. What? And it does just kind of remind you with all these tools that the UL listed that we kind of take for granted in the United States doesn't exist everywhere in the world. So you have to kind of be careful with these tools and kind of think about them as they are. We were talking the other day just about sort of old tools that there's a sort of like a nostalgia memory lane of funny tools that have come through the repair industry. I was thinking about just yesterday, do you guys remember Raul from Prime Tech Tools? Raul one time had a tool that was just a giant block of metal that was supposed to be a board cooler. And I thought about it yesterday because I had a Samsung that was getting hot and was clicking off. And I was like, I wonder if I could cool it down by putting it on 2 of these tweezer stones, and it reminded me of Raul's giant metal block. Rewa is sponsoring a ton of shops. They came all the way to visit him in Sweden unannounced, and we're looking to appear in our social. Yeah, they came to my shop unannounced with we were just in the neighborhood. You are in China, and you went to a conference in California. Now, I'm no, expert on geography, but I don't think that you're in the neighborhood between California and China. I don't think that you go by Western New York to visit, So they came over. It was during a training, and I was really uncomfortable with that because they were like, hey, we're Rewa, here we are, knock, knock. And I'm in the middle of course, which is course week is 100% our full attention in the shop, and it was really uncool. And then they had this plan. It was really funny. They were like, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to teach us how to do your training. You're going to keep doing it, and then we're going to do it together, and then we're just going to do it. No, are you out of your mind? That was just a crazy, crazy offer. Okay, now let's see if we can lift this up. Will that get in there? Okay, yeah, all right, there we go. And lifts up, nice and easy. Oh, looks rusty in there. Let's take this one off. Do you guys see that? Rust, big bunch of rust bucket. That is crazy. Isn't that just wild when you see it like that? To just think about how oh, you guys can't see it very well. Right here. To think about the fact that, the little crack in the camera glass let the water go between the layers of the logic board. Now this this is really similar in appearance to the one that I just did the other day that ended up needing CPU transfer to solve. So this might end up going that way because when I started cleaning that other one, just stuff was falling off the board. But let's take a look under the microscope. So I'm going to close off the camera, and we are going to let's do the worst looking, the bottom board first, and take a look. Look at that. Oh, I'm going to take a look under the microscope together with you. And wow, look at that. There's like sea salt. Like you could sprinkle this on a margarita. Look at that. That's like just so wild. Like this looks like maybe SpongeBob is growing in here. Like this is something I could drop this whole board in the fish tank that we just set up for the carnival goldfish that, by the way, is still alive. This thing's been alive. It's been like 3 weeks. And I think he would like kind of colonize this. Look at this. This is almost like worth kind of like taking one of those pictures that people take of like the cracked LCD screens. That's just kind of like arty. That's kind of cool. I wish I had made a, maybe I should edit the thumbnail. How do I take I'm gonna take a new thumbnail. Let's do new thumbnail, region, screenshot. There we go. Save. Isn't that cool? Beauty in the unexpected places. Let's call screenshot of rust. Rusty phone. Yet another rusty phone. All right, save. And look at that. Just super weird. So it looks bad, but once again, we don't really care what it looks like down there. Look at this. It's got this little dot, just like that other one. Do you guys see that? Let's zoom you in. It's just so crazy. That's super weird. Okay, so once again, we don't really care about this whole thing. This is the bottom board, the RF board, and the top board is where the data is. So this one, throwing away, and we're going to look at just the top board. So the top board is where we're going to have to actually make it work. And if it's truly horrific, then we're going to end up just taking the CPU to a receiver board. All right, let's see. Really rusty there. A little black carbon. I really wonder what Captain Butts was. Is he the captain of a boat? All right. So this looks pretty horrid. Oh man, it's hard to tell whether or not this stuff is superficial or not. Like it could be. This is interesting that layer of underfill or silicone waterproofing right here has actually protected the stuff below like it's supposed to. But the tops of these coils look horrible, but you know, their only job, this component right here, is to be a coil of wire inside. I don't know. This is the actual like physical damage. I don't know. Ooh, that one looks bad. That one actually has like a bulge in it, like it's coming up from underneath. All right. What do you guys think is the next step here? Ooh, this does not look good right here by the edge of the CPU. That's not good. These little tiny resistors. That's also not good. You can't like let salt kind of corrode these guys together. That's pretty bad. That's actually worse than the other area. All right. Up here, man, these coils are just like literally corroded. Like they're not like flat and nice on top. All these coils. Goobers in here. A little bit of the black plague on that guy. Looks bad. Looks bad. All right, what do you guys think? Let's see what chat said is the next step. Toothbrush it. Yes. Wouldn't rust corrupt the coil attenuation? Well, we're gonna find out. All right, old man's toothbrush is the first tool for the job. Now I would drop this in ultrasonic, except if I do that, which I may end up doing, I have to be careful of the fact that although everything here is be easy to ultrasonic, here on this side of the board, the ultrasonic solution would go underneath and get trapped underneath these shields. They would go under there and it would be stuck in there. So that would mean I'd have to take these off, which I might end up doing. But first I'm just going to give it a good old-fashioned, good, what's the opposite of like ultrasonic? Just like hyposonic, just a little hyposonic cleaning. Now when I do mess with these boards, I would like to get rid of, if possible, and I don't know if I have the right tool for it, the black thermal paste tends to just make a huge mess. If I start scrubbing, it'll like go everywhere. So we'll see. Brad, I'm worried that we're gonna need back that 13 Pro Max receiver board, which I don't know if I have the time to do right now. And also, it's in line for another job, so I'm not sure that I want to do that either. All right, let's clean this off. Let's revive this. Let's just get it a good old toothbrushing. All right, let's brush the crap out of it. All right, this is the hyposonic, the manual sonic. What's a good name for that process? I'm not really sure. All right, now especially we got to get in there at the edge of the CPU. That corner edge of the CPU, I think, is the worst part of it. Which means like, we can see that there's a row of resistors there. I'm talking about this area right along here. If any of those resistors are not seated on their spot, that can make like kind of a really big brain defect. Those resistors, or ones around the CPU, are going to be like the foundation of the crystal and how it talks to the CPU. It's going to be how the CPU knows what kind of a CPU it is. So board ID resistors. It's going to be the foundation of the output of the CPU, like connecting it to power so that it can make ones and zeros as it talks to everybody else. So those guys are going to really, really be important. A lot of this stuff on any of these boards is somewhat like optional, right? So anything on this top board that's a camera or an audio chip, don't care. We could just delete it. But we can't delete, things like CPU resistors. All right, let's see, how does that look now? Let's kind of fluff it up. Look at that. A lot of that was as expected superficial. So the ugliest part of it are these coils. So the function of any of these coils is to act as buck converters to help the PMU take that main power rail and generate the lower voltage power for the CPU and its companions like the RAM and other circuitry in the phone. So this is the big square is the PMU, and we've got all these coils around it. Now it's really interesting how they come in two different flavors, right? The kind that have this gritty top, and I don't know enough about their actual biology to know what is that substance, versus the ones that look like this. This other style is completely unaffected. They're just like kind of saltwater proof. But the other type, whatever that stuff is, I'd be curious to know. Maybe somebody in chat can tell me what that stuff actually is unaffected. So if you're building a project, if you're an electrical engineer, there must be a reason why you want these sort of like ones that kind of look like, sidewalk and not these like smooth ones. But look how nicely that all has come up. And we could get out the multimeter. Oh, there's a chunk out of this guy, probably from scrubbing it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think you could really scrub a chunk out of it. But I like to scrub vigorously because I want to see problems. So if there is a component that's just held on by a little bit of spit, I want it to come off. And that's why I like to brush it as hard as I can so that I can correct those problems before, otherwise you just wouldn't know. You can't really tell something that's just kind of hanging on there a little bit. Okay, great. All right, now we're gonna warm it up a little bit and we're gonna see where we are. All right, Cheeto dust, Dorito dust, yes. So we just did a Dorito dust ectomy on this. All right, for those of us who do board repair, when you clean out the goo, do you replace it before reassembly? No, we don't. We've tried that many times, and the chance that the goo is gonna cause a lift and make it so that you have one of those balls not actually bonded is just way too high compared to the actual benefit of having it there, because you've still got your, both of your chips are still connected to ground on their respective sides. So we kind of consider it a luxury item that is something that we have to sacrifice. Now keep in mind, we don't do a lot of repair for sandwich boards. We do mostly data recovery. So we've tried, when we do repair every now and then, like there's a really funny product from China, the explosion-proof discs. One of my favorite hilarious things. The explosion-proof discs are meant to solve that problem, so that if you put these little tiny spacers on a couple of these, a ground or something that you don't need, so you put a little spacer in a couple different spots, then in theory it's supposed to, oh look, here's one of the natural spacers right there. So it's in theory supposed to allow you to apply pressure when you're making that seal. We've tried that and that has worked a couple times, but it's not like one of our always works strategies, so we've abandoned it. So in general, we try to just develop a method that, even though I might do something differently than Brad or Mark or Christy, we try to come up with a way that, at least in your hands, it almost always works. It's very reliable. Okay, so I'm going to take a hard look here at these actual resistors. Now there's quite a bit. I can feel with the tweezers, I can feel quite a bit of the waterproofing in this area, so I'm kind of a little bit concerned about the end right there of that one, but we'll just kind of let that be. And now we're just going to look around. And man, this is such an interesting thing. It's like it's just created like a leprosy on these coils. Look at that. They've got like these pock marks and stuff. That's just super weird. I have not seen salt water do that to that extent before. Great. All right, let's see. Speaking of spacers, remember back in the day, iPhone 4s, when you lost that little black distance thing, which made the whole click work and you had to find workarounds. Yes, the actuator for the home button. I know exactly what you're talking about back in the day. All right, now let's go back to DC power and we're going to see where we are right now. Okay, so we're going to dig up DC power. There he is. And we're going to, I was supposed to be home 10 minutes ago. It is Maisie's day to make dinner, and I told her to have it ready at 4 o'clock. Whoops. So I better not drag this out. All right. Let's see. Do we still have our 50 milliamp leak? Connect. Come on, mofo. There you go, buddy. All right, our 50 milliamp leak has gone down to just a sad little, probably we can ignore it, 10 milliamp. Disconnect, connect, disconnect. So I'm just disconnecting right up here at the DC power, and you guys can see it right there. Connect, disconnect, connect. Dare we go on a hunt with the thermal camera to see, can we find the source of a 10 milliamp leak? Let's see if we can. That's going to require another phone. Oh, where's my phone? Is there another phone that has thermal camera? Okay, all right. We're going to get my phone back. My phone is currently in surgery, I think. All right. Recommend the Chanley Supercam. There is a Supercam somewhere around here, but setting that up is kind of a pain.
It's a great camera.
Huh?
Supercam's a great camera.
Supercam's a great camera. Oh, now he's like naked. He's got his eye out. Oh, and it's Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hey, are you busy?
Yeah, I'm doing a live stream. What's up?
Okay, never mind. Bye.
Okay, bye. He's like, are you busy? I see that Sam, like my dad, is not a subscriber. All right, we're gonna fire up. So our favorite camera is the P2, which you can find on iPadRehab.com. Click supply. The only thing I don't like about the P2 is that you have to open the app sort of manually by yourself. All right, let's see, dare we try to use one iPhone camera to look at another iPhone camera? All right, let's get rid of this. Let's see if this is remotely possible. Let's guess that we're going to be looking kind of on this side of the board. All right, let's get rid of, you'll have to just sort of, maybe we can move this over here. There we go. All right, let's see if we can make this at all something that you guys could see. Let's zoom out. All right. That might work. Okay, connect, power. All right, what is getting hot? This is so awkward to hold it like this. All right, let's see, connect, disconnect. Oh, look at that. Something's blinking at my spot that's right by the CPU that I don't like. Blink, see that? Oh, new episodes of Bridgerton, everybody. Chrissy, stop sending messages that are on live stream. Sorry. Okay, so let's see. Do you guys see that? New sign in on Apple iPad. Right here. Ding, ding, ding. All right, let's see if we can zoom. Is that remotely possible? Kind of. Look at that. That's pretty good. I like that. All right, we're going to look right there in that spot. Disconnect. Reconnect. disconnect, reconnect, disconnect, reconnect. See that? Okay, so you guys see it. So I'm going to put a tweezer right where we're talking, right around here. Right, and as we just slide that back up, it's right, oh no, it doesn't work anymore. There, where is it? Right here. And that same cruddy edge of the CPU. Boo! All right, let's take a look and see if we can look with our eyes. This is so super awkward. Get rid of that. All right, back under the microscope. Okay, so what looked like it was kind of getting hot-ish was two components that were around here. So let's see. Let's take our eyes and see if we can tell which ones of these are resistors and which are capacitors just visually, because a capacitor has the ability to become a wire to ground in the cause of a short circuit, where a resistor doesn't. A resistor can get hot, but it can't be the cause of a short to ground, which is likely what we're looking for right now. Okay, so let's see if we can do that. So if I look right here at this guy, that guy in particular looks like a capacitor. That looks like a capacitor. That looks like a resistor, 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 resistor. So in particular, this guy really jumps out at me. Let's see if we can zoom so that you guys can see what I'm seeing. All right, so this is really tiny, and it's right on the border of the CPU right there, but we can see, all right, that looks like a capacitor, that looks like a capacitor, and then this looks like a capacitor that maybe is, maybe a little bit damaged, is a little bit unclear. So what I want to do is get out my multimeter and just ask whether or not any of these guys are, jump out at me with an unusual reading. So let's try it. So let's see if we can ask that very quickly. Well, this is a capacitor that really jumps out at me as ugly. And yet, ugly or not, 0.279. That may not, that's not a full short to ground right there. Oh, this looks so beat up right there. Oh, these are just gone. All right, let's stick a probe on ground and let's see what we're getting in diode mode. 279. .371, that's a different circuit. So this 279, I kind of feel like we should look up and see, is that the main power rail and is that low? All right, looking at this really closely under the microscope seems like it's really chewed up here really bad. Oh my gosh, it's like a whole layer is kind of like beat up. Like this is like fireboard, where I can just feel the feeling of the board. This is fire. So a normal board, when I touch over here where it's normal, just sort of gently touching it, you can't really hurt it. But in this area, there is definitely stuff that is burned. See how it just kind of flakes up? So what I'm trying to do is to just get rid of this like burned area and see, I can see all these like little tiny traces. All right, we're gonna have to really like inspect right there in that area, because we may be at a, okay, this CPU is gonna have to come off in order to solve this. So let me see if I can show this to you. Oh, I hope you guys we can zoom enough for you guys to see. All right. Do you see at the edge of the CPU, so here's the CPU, that it looks like we can see horizontal lines? They kind of look like guitar strings right there. See that? So that is the second layer of the logic board. That's supposed to be covered up. That area is supposed to look, you know, just like over here, right? Just covered with the brown stuff, just part of the board. So that's actual traces that are within the logic board. Now the iPhone 13 Pro Max information that we have doesn't tell us what those guys are or where they go. But we can guess that the close proximity to the CPU and the fact that they're so tiny, that those are probably data connections going to and from the CPU. So that is, you know, potentially stuff that's going to be really important that we really need. This is the area that we said all along kind of like looked the worst. But let's see if we can. So the piece I'm peeling up right now is just the ground plane, which is okay. I want to just delete some of that. So you don't need ground plane. You don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to kind of make a nice clean break and cut that piece off. So now I've revealed this layer underneath. And I took that off because I don't want this corrosion, this burn, this char, this kind of like baked board. I don't want any of that to be connecting, you know, some of this circuitry to ground. All right, so it's maybe even possible or perhaps likely, as we kind of dig into this area, that the resistors that I said were so important sitting right here, they may have already like kind of lost their connections because of the board just being gone. I think it's really difficult. You can feel it more than like see it. All right, so let's kind of do what we can to just make sure we don't have ground layer touching anybody he's not supposed to. We're just going to kind of fillet that up a little bit and get rid of more of this char. There has been a fire here. When this originally happened, we probably could have seen like glowing red in this area. Now, if Tim was still here, he could X-ray this board and say exactly what traces are broken. But if we have important stuff for CPU that is severed, then that's going to be kind of like, all right, definitely need to do CPU transfer. Which is very ironic. It is unusual to have to do CPU transfer for saltwater, but that would be 2 for 2 this week. That were the same case. All right, we'll see. All right, let's kind of clear this up a little bit more. Just want to take away the ground layer. I can get rid of that just to make sure that it's not touching. This is almost like the good old classic iPhone 6 long screw damage trace repair. So when you're kind of working on this stuff, you can pull stuff back and tease it apart and then rebuild it later if you need it. But you can't have circuitry touching the neighbors. Yeah, this looks pretty bad. Captain Butts, you have CPU been on fire disease. All right. I don't think that's going to have helped our short circuit because we saw those 2 blinking components, but I think that needed to be done. All right, let's take a look and see back on our Easy Power what happens when we connect it. All right, it did cure that. So we're at 0. We're at 0. Now I'm going to guess that Captain Butts' saltwater phone is probably not going to be able to boot up because it looks like some strands that are coming out of the CPU are broken or maybe even touching the neighbors, even after sort of cleaning them up as best we could. But at least right now, we don't have any active current leak. So we are clear to go to the next step, which is to ask it to turn on. Hey, Brad, do you want this back?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, leaving it there. Hopefully we won't need a thermal camera again. All right, now let's close off this. And we're gonna, been wanting a couple for ourselves. Let's see, TCRS has an X-ray. He allegedly has an X-ray. He may or may not have an X-ray, depending on what the rules are in California. All right, so let's go back to this side of the board, connected it to DC power. I guess we do need to bring back our easy power. And now we're gonna see what happens. But let's talk first. If there is nothing else wrong, we'll be extremely lucky, and we will see a normal boot up sequence right up there on DC power. If the problem, and I love this. This is exactly what Practical Board Repair School is all about. If we have a problem where in here in this area where I was just cleaning things out, see how there's all these little guitar strings? Do they look completely intact? Maybe, right? You can't tell. So if there's any of these guys that are now open because they don't actually make it into the CPU and to their connection at the pad under there, or if they are like smashed together in this somewhere in there and they're touching each other, so the ones and zeros are going to bleed together, all of that is going to create the same type of problem, which is the CPU won't be able to boot the phone. So the CPU, if you imagine it being mute, you know, where it can't speak, then what we would see right up there is we would see that 0 would just stay below 100. It would just stay really low, and we'll call that brain dead. So the CPU is the brain, and the CPU's job is to load up its firmware and then start issuing commands to all the other chips that causes the normal current dance. And instead, if we see that number just low, then that's going to tell us that our problem is somewhere in here. And that's going to be really difficult to dig out and to solve. The easier way to solve it would be to take the data containing chip and its companion decryptor, the CPU, and take them to a receiver board. That's what we would have to requote this job for that. And then second, what about all this other damage? What about all the leprosy coils, right? So all these leprosy coils. Now these guys have a different job. So their job is to supply power, to convert power from the battery power down to power for other systems. So if these are actually the problem, then we may see a completely different thing going on there. We may see it go sort of start to dance and then kind of like freeze, or we may see that it goes high because there's a short circuit on one of those lines as they become active. So what we're going to do is we're going to wake up the PMU by pressing the power button, and the PMU is going to start using all of these leprosy coils to generate power to all the other systems. One is going to be the CPU, and the CPU is going to have to signal through these spider web and try to boot up the phone. So there is a chance for Captain Butts that despite all of this damage, that it may actually be okay, because maybe all of this stuff is just for systems that the phone doesn't need to boot up and get the data. Let's give it a try. So we're going to flip this back over, and we are going to connect into our DC power. And then the way that I'm going to press the power button is I'm going to go to the power button where it connects right there, and I'm going to use tweezers to simulate what the power button does, and we're going to see what happens. So let's see if we can see any activity at all. It looks like no, so it is completely unresponsive to the power button. That is okay because we don't technically need a power button. And it's very typical for these devices to get injured at the power button. So we'll have to try it another way. But before we do that, I've forgotten in the 13 Pro Max which one of these tiny pins is the actual power pin. But I'm going to do a quick voltage test and just see, do I see any voltage here at all? So here I see 0.4 volts, here 0, here 0, here 0.2, here 0.2, and there 0. So these voltages are low. They should be 1.8. One of them at least should be 1.79. That's the normal power button voltage. So that tells us that the power button here has been electrocuted. Where does it go? It goes over here to the PMU. So that means this PMU is not able to supply the power button voltage, which is bad, but not necessarily a deal breaker. So we're going to do one more thing. Let's try to wake up the PMU the other way. So we're going to try to wake up the PMU by plugging in a charge port. So we're going to have to come up with a 13 Pro Max charge port just because we want to ask, you know, maybe, it's pretty unlikely, but maybe the only thing wrong is that the PMU can't make the power button, which we don't really care about because we don't need a power button. We do need the power button line to not be kind of a permanent 0, but we could use a jumper or something to overcome that problem. So let's ask, is the only thing wrong here that the PMU is electrocuted on the power button line, or are there bigger fish to fry? Which means I need a 13 Pro Max charge port. Let's go on hunt. 13 Pro Max charge port. 13 Pro Max charge port. 12 Pro Max? 12 Pro Max? Give me a hint. Where's that other job? I had it. No.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yes.
Oh, that's bad. Where did I put that? I don't remember that. I think I did that.
Took that home.
I did. I did it at home. 13 Pro Max charge port.
Right here.
Yay. Does it have a charge port? Yes. Is this that same receiver board? Oh.
Presumably.
I wonder if that guy's native board is here. Yay! 13 Pro Max charge port. Nope, that's a different one. Okay. Well, let's see. What do you think is going to happen, chat? I think that it's going to be brain dead. So let's see. All right. So we're going to put in charge port, and we are going to prompt it to boot. All right, so we'll prompt it to boot. Let's go back to this guy. All right, so I'm going to plug in USB and see what happens on DC power. All right, prompt to boot, and disconnect, and nothing. Brain dead. CPU is not able to boot up this phone. So this could be that one of those coils is not able to supply power to the CPU, which we could check with a multimeter and find out which one it is. Or this could be the other fault, which is the CPU maybe is getting power, but it's not able to actually do anything because it's had a little fire right there in the corner. So either one of those kind of leads to the same conclusion, which is it no longer makes sense to try and repair the native board here because it's relatively straightforward to take off a CPU on a 13 Pro Max. It's not in the way of anything, right? It's kind of over here where if we had to replace the PMU, it's actually more of a challenge to replace the PMU because you got to do the blast off method and you have to fix all these coils. That's a pretty involved repair compared to taking the CPU and the EEPROM and the NAND, which are just sort of easy to get to, and they're exposed and no big deal on the 13 Pro Max. So that is going to be the next step with this one. I'm curious though, let's see just for fun if we see, is the PMU able to supply any like power just like to the NAND? So let's just do a quick multimeter around and just kind of see, do we see the PMU with that like 10 milliamps? That is what a PMU would do if it's sending power to a sleeping CPU that can't do anything. That's not atypical. So just out of curiosity, let's go ahead and get the multimeter out, and we're going to go to V voltage mode and just kind of probe around a little bit and see where we see power and where we don't, just for fun. But this one is going to end up being requoted for CPU transfer. All right, which is 2 for 2, 13 Pro Max with salt water. Guess they really just don't like to get salty. All right, so I'm curious though, as we see our 10 milliamps, which tells us, we've told the thing to, to start making juice. What do we get? So I'm just kind of probing around here to see if I can see any voltage that the PMU is making. So let's see. Nothing so far. Let's check right here. Nope. All right, so let's check over here. Let's check back at this guy that we know, that we think is probably more like a main power rail. Yep, main power for 4.19, same as we're feeding from the DC power. And let's see what else would be something that we would know would definitely be on. We'll have to probe around the NAND. Yikes. All right, let's see if we can check any of these guys. NAND area components are going to usually have, they're going to be working. 0 on that guy. 0 on that guy. Zero on that guy. So far, none. Okay, so we don't see, with my multimeter asking, is the PMU able to actually do its job? We told it to wake up. Is it able to supply the correct power button voltage? No. Why? Injury to the PMU. All right, well, we've woken it up and we've got our 10 milliamps. Are we able to see any other voltages that he's supposed to make through all of these leprosy coils? And the answer is no, he's not doing his job at all. So none of these voltages. We do see the main power rail, our 4 volts, has appeared. It is going to the PMU, and the PMU is receiving it, and it is waking up because we're getting our 10 milliamps, but it's not able to actually do its job, which could be all of these coils not working, or some of them, or more likely, it's damage to the PMU itself, because that power button line doesn't go anywhere and it doesn't require one of these coils. The power button line comes straight from the PMU. Tell it to turn on, it makes the power button. That's like its #1 job that it does even when it's otherwise totally asleep. And this PMU is not able to do it. So if we wanted to fix this board, we would have to replace this PMU, and at the same time, we're probably going to have to we'd replace the PMU and then test again, but likely we can't. Some of these guys are not working and would also require replacement. If you're doing that much heat on this board, it's far safer to just use a very low heat to take off your CPU and transfer it to a receiver board for data recovery. Okay, so that's really all that we can learn here with the Desmond Butts board. Needs to be requoted for CPU transfer. And for you guys that have watched this stream, how are you going to figure out whether or not it worked? I think it has a likely chance that it will work. The only thing I'm concerned about is the fire right here. If that actually bothered this corner. Like, did this get so hot here? CPUs don't like to get really hot. That's the only thing I'm really concerned about. But I think this probably has a good chance of recovery just from experience. And so where will you find out? I will make a community post on YouTube with what happens to this phone so that you can catch up, and I'll leave a comment on this video after we get that done. But it's going to be a while because this one's going to be in line for our 13 Pro Max receiver board, which we have a really important case that we want to use our known good receiver board on a forensic case that's in line. So this one's going to be behind that. So I will update you when I know, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.